Hello again. So this is just a really quick video to show you a little hack that I've come up with for the Fermzilla All Rounder. Somebody else may have done this already, so this might not be a totally original idea, but I've not seen it, so I'm claiming this one for myself. But basically, today I've been brewing a beer, Neon Raptor Brew Day kit, which mentions rousing the hops with CO2. Now, this is a technique that I'm aware of, but it's one of the few downsides of the all-rounder is not being able to affect the hops from the base, obviously, because there's no drop valve on it like you've got with the full-size Fermzillas and all the rest of it. So other than picking it up and shaking it about a bit, there's not much you can do once the hops have settled to the bottom. So my solution is this. We have a T-piece fitted to the top here, so you can buy these from various homebrew suppliers or direct from the Kegland store on AliExpress. And I've put 2 of the normal disconnects onto there, and then you can see through the bottom here a dip tube that's gone nasty and yellow and probably needs replacing. But in addition to that, there's now this rigid beer line going down to the bottom. So what I've done is run the beer line off of the top disconnect here. So we'll be able to use this side disconnect as the usual point for the spunding valve or adding gas or whatever else you want to do, gas in and out wise. And then obviously the other one is your beer dip line or outlet. And then this tube here is just going to be running straight down to the bottom of the fermenter. And once we've got some beer in there fermenting, and if we're dry hopping it, so this is obviously specifically really for any beers where you're doing a pretty big dry hop and you want to rouse those hops up after they've kind of sunk to the bottom, I suppose, to get better utilisation out of it. What we can do is basically just inject CO2 in through this. That will bubble up through the base and hopefully, in theory, fire some hops up into the air. So, not into the air, but into the beer anyway. So it's kind of emulating what a lot of commercial breweries do. And yeah, I guess all we need to do now is get that beer into there and actually give it a little bit of a test run and see how it works. So hopefully I'll be able to get some good footage of some hops flying around in the FV when we start bubbling some CO2 in through that tube. But yeah, that's my little idea that I've come up with. We'll see if it works. Okay, so this beer has been dry hopped and there's about 120 grams worth of dry hops, which, as you can see, have sunk off of the top. It's a super murky number, so you can't really see much of where they've gone, but they're layered up at the bottom. And I'm going to give it a quick blast of CO2 through the top, and the CO2 hop rousing pipe, or whatever you want to call it, to see how it works. So make sure, obviously, before you do this, if your fermenter is under pressure, that you've either got more pressure on your gas line already, or you release that pressure from the FV. Otherwise you might get beer shooting up the gas line and into your regulators and stuff, which you don't want. So anyway, let's give it a blast, see what happens. Well, that was quite vigorous. Okay, so you can hear some gas being released from the spunding valve. Let's see if we can see some hops floating around in there. So again, it's kind of hard to pick up on the camera, but there are hops now floating around in there. Let me just try that on a slightly lower pressure. So admittedly, this isn't the best beer to demonstrate with because it's so murky that you can't really see what's going on when we're injecting the CO2 into there, but just try it one more time here. So you get a bit of a better view from this side. It shows that it's definitely firing everything up into suspension from the bottom there. So to some extent, it's definitely doing what is intended. You can see lots of hop matter and yeast and trube as well floating around there. So I guess you'd have to do this a few times because it's going to settle back down pretty quickly for it to have any noticeable difference, I would imagine. But it's a quick hack that yeah, does the job of rousing the hops up without too much effort. Normally I would be wanting to use a little soda stream adapter with a soda stream rather than the line off of the main keezer, so that I didn't have to get the FV out of the fermentation fridge. But as per usual, the soda stream cylinder is empty when you need it, so that was an option. But again, obviously that would make it easier because you don't have to get the whole FV out of the fridge to do it. But anyway, that might be helpful to some of you, possibly, I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Cheers.
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, you know, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.